This is episode 84 of the 99 Forever podcast. I'm Eric Friesen, and my guest tonight is making his sixth appearance on the podcast. He's the host of 97 Octane Hockey and a contributor to HeavyHockey.com, Mike Dirsa. Dirsa, how's your long weekend going?
Oh, it's beautiful so far. The weather is nice. Can't complain. Oilers got a win in Dallas yesterday, so life is good.
Yeah, I totally agree with all that. And this is the second episode we've now recorded together in less than a week. So always great chatting with you, Kirk, and Bob. So I'm glad you could get back on my show, too.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, of course. And as I just mentioned off the top, this is episode 84. And of course, the Edmonton Oilers won their first Stanley Cup in 1984, which we're approaching the 40th anniversary of this spring. Unfortunately, I wasn't born at the time, but I just thought I'd start by asking you tonight, what memories, if any, you have from the Oilers' first Cup victory in 1984?
Honestly, I think the only thing that's really in my head is that call with a few seconds left to go. There's a new bunch on the block by name. The Edmonton Oilers have just won the Stanley Cup. I think that's pretty much my only memory. I think I was about 8 years old when we won the first one. So,
do you remember just even beyond actually watching any, what the reaction was to people around you? Because I'm guessing you were surrounded by a lot of Oilers fans as well.
Well, when that went down, my dad and my Uncle Jim were at that game.
They were at the clinching game.
I'm not sure if it was a clincher, but they were at one of the games in that series. My dad used to be friends with Bill Toelli from Molson Breweries and kind of backdoored their way into one of the games in the series. But I was too little. I don't remember which one, but I remember them being a part of all that, and that's probably really the only that and the call from the last thing are really about the only things that are kind of in my mind.
What is the first of the Oilers Cup wins that you really have strong memories of then?
Yeah, probably Peter Klima coming off the bench to win in overtime.
So more of the early 90s than the 80s Cups.
I don't know. I mean, Wayne dancing through people, I think is kind of in there. Wayne and Yari doing their thing, and yeah, I mean the 1990 Cup. I think I was 14 by then, so that's doing it without Wayne. That's kind of more in my memory banks, and yeah.
Well, I think that just shows anyone that's your age or younger wouldn't have too many memories of the dynasty years anyway. So. Let's hope that we can start putting together a new championship run this year and create some new memories for the current generation of Oilers fans.
Yeah, I mean, my sons really don't have any really Cup memories. Like my oldest was basically 6 years old in 2006, so there's not really much there for him. So yeah, selfishly, I want a sixth Cup for me, but
of course,
I want to see it through their eyes too. So I hope this season ends the right way.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And I mean, at least they've been treated to some great years with McDavid, because for your younger kids anyway, like they probably don't know a world without Connor McDavid playing for the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, I mean, my youngest is 16, and it's funny, when he was 4 years old, his favorite player was number 4, Taylor Hall. And, I might have told you this story before, but we were at a game, and he's like, "Dad, I see Taylor Hall." And it was right after I think he got stepped on. Oh. And he was up in the press box, and I'm like, no, he's not on the bench. And Max points up to the catwalk. "No, up there." And sure enough, he saw him up on the catwalk.
Had a good eye there for the healthy scratch, or I guess not healthy scratches, just the press box players that night.
Yeah.
And you posted some pictures on Twitter the other night at the outdoor rink, and for me, my favorite thing to do in the winter is to play some shinny or even just go for a skate at the outdoor rink or on the pond. Do you still enjoy getting out there as much as you did as when you were growing up? And how are you feeling going into the Heavy Hockey Showdown next weekend?
You know, I don't get on the ice as much as what I did growing up, so I might even have a deeper appreciation for it now. It's, I don't know, like I was a multi-sport athlete growing up, but for me, being on the ice is always kind of that freeing, magical kid at Christmas kind of feeling. So I definitely enjoy it still.
Yeah, I know you're also a big basketball fan and played the game too. So I know the way that you speak about it, and even talking about being a Bulls fan back in the 90s and everything, you've got a affinity for it for sure. But when you compare just being on the court and shooting around compared to being out there on the ice, do you still take playing a little shinny over it?
Oh man, basketball is running and I think when you get older, you don't have the affinity to run as much anymore. So the fact that, you can get on the ice and
glide a little bit.
You can glide a little bit. And if you put your head down, you can skate still pretty well and get up and down the ice with a little bit more speed. It seems like it's a bit of a chore for me to run real fast for a long period of time. So, last night I was on the ice with a bunch of kids and stuff. And I, before I knew it, 2 hours were gone and I felt fine and, no time to go off and sit on the bench and catch a breath. So it was like full shinny, just go. And a few of the kids actually were probably bantam sort of midget age. So it was kind of a little bit up and down. So tried to hit the post and that kind of stuff because there's no goalies. And yeah, it was a good time. I needed it.
I like the yeah.
I felt it a little bit today. But
I like the tweet that you had, though, just showing the outdoor rink at sunset. And you said, is there anything more Canadian than this? And then followed up with another pic shortly thereafter with sticks in the middle. And if there is anything more Canadian, that's it.
Yeah, the only thing that would have been more Canadian was having a beaver there, probably a Molson Canadian beer and being at Lake Louise. But,
Yeah. No, but still, that's awesome, man. And we will be, like I said, playing in the Heavy Hockey Showdown next week. And so really looking forward to seeing you again and hopefully take home another championship.
Yeah, I'm going to have Michael and Ryan Lotzberg on the show tomorrow. And
nice.
Yeah, I think one more time to have a beer out of the trophy.
Yeah, for sure. I guess you've been holding it for the past year then.
It's been in my possession, yeah.
The Adam Zielinski Memorial Cup, and hopefully, like I said, we'll be lifting it one more time next weekend. And I'm just really looking forward to getting back to Edmonton. It's going to be great to play in this event for the fourth time. And I'll also be seeing you at the Battle of Alberta on Saturday night. But before we look too far ahead, let's talk about how the Oilers have performed coming out of the bye week. And as is often the case on this show, I want to start by talking about Connor McDavid tonight. Since being crowned the first ever NHL All-Star Skills Champion a couple weeks ago, McDavid has been on an absolute tear offensively. McDavid has 14 points in 6 games so far this month, including 10 assists in his last 3 contests, which should earn him NHL First Star of the Week honors tomorrow. Dirsa, McDavid tallied a career-high 6 assists in an 8-4 win over the Detroit Red Wings on Tuesday night. And through 40 minutes of that game, the Oilers weren't looking great, but McDavid just single-handedly took over that game in the third period, didn't he?
He showed why he's the best player in the game. He just dug in and refused to lose and kind of carried them to that win. Yeah, no, he made it look pretty easy that night.
And he picked up those 2 assists early in the game, but the game was still very much in the balance. I didn't like their second period at all. Really, they haven't had great second periods consistently since coming back from the All-Star break, but the third period has been a strong period for the Oilers all season, and I can't think of a better one than putting up 5 on the Red Wings on Tuesday night.
Yeah, coming out of the second intermission, you didn't know what to expect, and they just totally took over the game. Yeah, just they showed that they still can put up points and dominate a team offensively and kind of lock it down defensively too.
Yeah, and when you look at how the overall team was, it's hard to find too many guys that really had a good night in that game. But obviously, it was an all-time performance by number 97. And after the Oilers squandered multiple 2-goal leads, like I said, he just took over the game in the third and just kind of had that mindset that we're not losing this hockey game, put the team on his back, picking up 4 helpers in the final frame as part of a 6th assist effort. And the Oilers secured a much-needed win on home ice because, after losing 4-0 to LA a couple nights earlier and the Kings starting to get on a bit of a roll, they really needed to get 2 points in the standings. And McDavid's 3rd assist of the game was also his 600th of his NHL career. He became the 4th fastest player in NHL history to record 600 assists, reaching the milestone in only 616 games. And the only players to ever achieve the feat quicker than McDavid are widely considered the 3 greatest players in the history of the game: Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, and Bobby Orr. He also passed Mike Bossy for the 3rd highest points per game average in NHL history and tied Orr for the 3rd highest assist per game average in NHL history last week. So quite a few milestones for the Oilers captain. And since getting healthy around American Thanksgiving, McDavid has been producing offense at an even better clip than he did last season when he put up 153 points. He has 65 points in his past 33 games, which is a 162-point pace over a full 82-game schedule. He now leads the league with 60 assists this season, and he's 13 points back of Nikita Kucherov in the scoring race with 4 games in hand. Dirsa, with 31 games remaining this season, do you think McDavid still has a shot to win his 6th Art Ross Trophy this year?
Yeah, I definitely do. I mean, he's on a torrid pace right now. I would say by the end of this week, he's going to pass Nathan MacKinnon, and then only have Kucherov left to catch. But I don't think that's his focus this season. I think he's on a different level. I think it's all about winning a championship. And I don't think he cares whether or not he gets another Art Ross trophy to add to the trophy case. I think he's looking at the big silver cup.
Oh, of course. And I don't think he's really ever been motivated by individual awards. But obviously, when you're a player of his caliber, those are just going to come along with the wins. Like, he contributes to the offense to such a great degree that he's going to consistently either win scoring titles or be in the hunt for them for years to come. And I do think that, even though he said the team aspect is most important to him, I think he still has a lot of pride and is driven by, doing the best he can to try and win them, just out of, wanting to be the best player in the world night in and night out. We also just briefly talked about it earlier in the podcast about Michael Jordan. There's a guy who won, I believe, 10 scoring titles in the NBA as well as 6 championships. But do you see some of that in McDavid, that the same sort of fire that I guess Jordan had? And, even though he's going to win all these scoring titles, ultimately what he wants to do is bring home a championship.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Jordan's 2nd or 3rd year in the NBA. He won the scoring title and Defensive Player of the Year.
Right. I think he's the only player that's ever done that.
He isn't, but there's very few that have. I think there's like 4 or 5 guys that have conquered that feat. But
really, I thought that he was the only one, but you would know better.
Yeah, David Robinson. I can't list them all, but I know David Robinson's in that category too. But what I think Hakeem Olajuwon. Now you got me thinking about it. But
now, you said scoring title and Defensive Player of the Year, right?
Yeah, in the same season. And that's kind of the effort I think that McDavid's kind of bringing this year. But he might not get that scoring title, but I think he's really worked hard on trying to be a complete player and have a strong two-way game. I think he last season he showed everybody that he can be an elite goal scorer, and he definitely still is. But I think he's went back into that mindset of trying to make everybody on the team better, almost like number 99. So I think that's kind of been his focus a little bit more this year, and I think that kind of style from him, fans probably yelling at him to shoot, but I think that kind of style is going to bode well, and he's gearing up for a long playoff run.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there is still part of the narrative out there because he's such a dominant offensive player that McDavid isn't good defensively, but really he's been making strides in his defensive game the last couple of years, and this year I think is probably the best he's ever been. And you notice that he's becoming a much more physical player too. I can't ever remember him hitting as often as he does now. And he's actually a pretty good sized guy, like 6'1", 193 pounds. And when you're skating as quickly as he gets to these puck races and is able to knock guys off the puck and quickly transition the other way. So that's how he contributes the most defensively. And even just being able, because he's the fastest player in the world, to get back and strip pucks on the back check and, like I said, once again, get the puck going in the right direction. So that's where he thrives. And like, I don't just think McDavid has a shot to win the scoring title. I think he's actually the favorite. And some people might think that sounds ridiculous considering that he's still 13 points back of the league lead. And I guess it's not so much that I think that Kucherov is going to dramatically slow down. I just think that McDavid is going to continue to elevate his play down the stretch. March and April are historically two of his best months for producing points. And let's just say he gets 8 points in those 4 games in hand on Kucherov. Well, then he'd only be 5 points back of him with a quarter of the season to go. And anyone who's watched McDavid consistently over the past 9 years knows that's plenty of run rate for him to make up ground in the scoring race. And right now he's on pace for 132 points in 80 games because remember, he missed 2 games back in November with an injury. But the way he's been racking up the points over the past 3 months, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he hits 140 this season, especially if the power play really gets going again. And Dirsa, you kind of just mentioned this, but after proving that he could score 60 goals last season, do you really think that he wants to push his assist total as high as possible this year?
Oh yeah. I think he's really trying to get everybody involved, and I think he realizes now it's about having as many people going as possible.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at how some of his line mates have been performing. Like Nuge, obviously not putting the puck in the net as much as he did last year, but there are still a pretty good amount of balance throughout the lineup. I think they have 7 guys with double-digit goals. I'll just quickly confirm that. 7 with 10 or more goals. So. And of course, you've got 3 guys who are over 20 and 1 who's over 30 already. And like you said, like last season, he really established himself as one of the top snipers in the league. And it's kind of odd, I guess you could say, when a guy who's recorded 7 straight 30-goal seasons and scored 40 or more goals 3 times isn't considered one of the best finishers in the league. But much like Gretzky, who was also an elite goal scorer, McDavid will probably always be viewed as a playmaker first and foremost. And we've seen him, like you said, revert more to his natural instinct as a passer this season, because last year when he scored 64 goals and won the Rocket Richard Trophy, he was averaging 4.3 shots per game. And this season, that number is down to 3.3 shots per game. And there's probably a few more opportunities where you'd like him to just fire the puck on net, but he is such a team-first guy wanting to set up his teammates. And I think McDavid would rather see Zach Hyman score 50 goals this year than putting up 40 goals himself. And, when I did my season preview episode back in October, I predicted that McDavid would reach 100 assists this season. And currently he's on pace for 98 assists, which would pass Joe Thornton's mark for the most single-season assists in the salary cap era with 96. And I think that if McDavid were to put up 100 assists, that might even be more impressive than when he had 150 points last year, because There have been 17 150-point seasons by 6 players in NHL history. However, there's only been 13 100-assist seasons, and only 3 players have done it. So it's a more exclusive club. And while it's something that I don't think that he is probably thinking about or maybe even aware of how exclusive of a group that is, I really think that that would be one of the most impressive accomplishments of his career if he were to get to 100 assists.
I'm going to guess that he'd be in the company of Wayne, Mario, and Bobby Orr.
Yep, you got it. And as to no one's surprise, it's so slanted in Wayne's favor. Bobby Orr did it once, Mario Lemieux did it once, and Gretzky did it 11 consecutive times.
11 in a row. Wow.
Yeah. So safe to say that one isn't being touched, but I mean, for McDavid to be in that group, like he is really in the company of the all-time greats. And I have a feeling that by the time his career is over, we will think of him sort of in that hockey Mount Rushmore group with the 3 gentlemen that I just named.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation for sure.
And like when you think about it, 40 assists he needs in the final 31 games. That's a little above the pace that he's currently on right now. But does it seem possible to you that he could actually do this?
No, sure. I mean, the guy can turn around and put 6 up in one night. I mean,
yeah.
I would say, you know what, like probably in 15 games he is where he catches Kucherov.
Yeah. I think, well, I mean, he's already ahead of him with the...
I just mean in points total, but
in points total, yeah. But... honestly, if he didn't win the scoring title, but he was still able to get close to 100 or over 100 apples, I mean, I would still take that. And I mean, the fact that he's going to very likely put up back-to-back 130-point seasons, like we can't take this guy for granted. We are watching him right in his prime. And, with last year, this year, and maybe the next couple, he's going to probably be at this level. And this is when, like you said, when we're talking about championships, this is when you want to take advantage of it. You want to win one while McDavid is right at peak abilities. Yeah.
That's how he puts himself in that conversation with all those other guys you were mentioning too. And there's, number 29 is going to be making a push for that too. Today was Yager Day in Pittsburgh, but there's no reason those two can't be kind of in that upper echelon kind of talk when it's all said and done.
And that's really the only thing that's missing from McDavid's career, because he's done everything offensively that you could ask. Like last season, the only thing that he really hadn't accomplished was a 50-goal season and a Rocket Richard trophy. Well, he checked those 2 off, and he put up the 150-point season, which is astounding and something that we probably didn't even think that we might see again in the 21st century. So the fact that he was able to do that is just remarkable. But there is still that one thing that's missing in his career, and it's a Stanley Cup. And, we're in year 9 of his NHL career, so it's time. And I still believe if they would have got by the Vegas Golden Knights last spring, that they would have went all the way and won it. So it's a little frustrating. That was probably his best path to the Cup, I think, to this point. So, because there wasn't really like a dominant force standing in their way, the way like the 2022 Avs were. Like that was a juggernaut team, and the Oilers weren't going to beat them. But I do feel like they would have beat Dallas in the conference final if they would have got there last year, and I think they would have beat Florida in the final as well. So Vegas was their I guess unofficial Stanley Cup final, and probably the toughest test that Vegas faced in the playoffs last year too.
It was the best series of the playoffs too, but just didn't go our way.
Didn't quite go our way, but the way it's looking like we might be seeing those two teams match up again in the first round this year, with hopefully the Oilers taking that second spot so they can get home ice advantage. And sticking with McDavid, he was on a new look first line with Leon Draisaitl and Corey Perry the past 2 games. Dirsa, what did you think of the decision to reunite McDavid and Draisaitl in the third period against the St. Louis Blues on Thursday night? And were you initially concerned at all about Perry being able to keep up with him at age 38?
Yeah, the St. Louis game, St. Louis looked pretty good in that hockey game. And I thought we were having a little bit of trouble staying with what had worked for us in that 16 game winning streak. So Knobloch kind of goes to the well and decides to shake things up and comes out with Draisaitl and Perry with Connor. And I think it was Perry's first go with those two, and he scores his first goal as an Edmonton Oiler. Can he keep up with them? No. But can he play with them? I think that's a different conversation. The one thing I've noticed with him since his first appearance with this club is that his timing and his passing hasn't missed a beat. Most of the passes are right on the tape of whoever he's trying to give it to. He's a heady player, and he's looking to make plays, and he makes a lot of them. And the one thing that I have appreciation for is, Zach Hyman and Vander Kane go to the net, but Corey Perry is like Ryan Smith, and he's there all the time, and you can't move him. And now he's got 2 goals in back-to-back games with Leon and Connor. So is that a long-term solution? I don't think so. But in spot duty, I'm not offended by it. I think it's all right. I think he can play with anybody still. Yeah. The boots aren't there. That's obvious. But when I coached minor hockey, I always teach kids that you can pass the puck a lot faster than you can skate. So if you can put pucks on people's tape and know where to go, you can be effective. The very first couple of games, he was paired with, I think, Fogle and McLeod. And
they were good. You have to put him with fast skaters like that, because if he plays with another guy with slow boots, it's just going to be a disaster. But play him with some fast guys who can retrieve the puck for him and get it to him in front of the net, and that's where I think he can be really effective.
Yeah, I mean, with them, I thought he was almost like Brett Hall. He was going to quiet areas of the ice and setting up shop to get shots away.
Had some good looks too. Like, he had a really good chance to score in LA, but he was just robbed by Riddick. But just, you've had a feeling one was going to go in for him eventually here, and obviously it has now the past 2 games.
Yeah, being up with McDavid and Draisaitl, I think he's taken more of a kind of that get to the paint and wreak havoc on the goalie kind of game. He's not going to quiet areas with them, but he was when he first kind of was brought up, and maybe that was him just kind of feeling his way into playing again. But I think his tenure as an Oiler really got started in Anaheim when he batted Gibson's stick out of his hand so Kane could score.
and like Perry, the thing that I thought he would bring to the team more than anything was experience. I mean, we're talking about a 19-year NHL vet. He's played almost 1,300 regular season games and another 200 playoff games. He's won a cup. He's been to the Final 4 times. Those are the kind of guys you want around this team going into the playoffs, sort of like what Duncan Keith, I guess, brought a couple of years ago, a veteran guy who's been there, done that, and can sort of help this group figure out how to get over the hump and win a championship, which they've been in the hunt for the last couple of years, but just haven't been able to finish it off. And now you bring in a guy like Corey Perry. Ideally, I think you'd probably want him on your third line. That's where he's going to be most effective. Like I said, with a couple faster wingers playing with him, or skaters, I guess I should say, as he's on the wing. But I think in a pinch, he can jump up and play with McDavid and Draisaitl. I mean, look, he's played exactly 4 periods with them, and he's cashed in 2 goals now. And, players like Perry have thrived alongside McDavid in the past. He does well with power forwards who go to the net. He even looked good with Milan Lucic early in his tenure with the Oilers. He turned Patrick Maroon into a 27-goal scorer in 2016-17. Evander Kane is, more talented and a better shooter than either of those guys. But, he's another guy who goes to the net. Connor's had played well with him. And now you got a guy like Corey Perry. Like, yes, he's not the player that he was 5 years ago. And he never really was a a quick player, but like you said, he's a heady player. And this is a guy with a ton of experience and a ton of hockey sense, and he knows where to plant himself in front of the net, and he's so big that he's difficult to move. So you look at the two goals he scored, the one in St. Louis. He, like you said, he kind of gets lost in open space, and a puck takes a point shot, takes a bounce off a defender's stick and lands right on his tape, and he just has to kind of make a little move to the side and tuck it in. And then in the game in Dallas, he just literally standing at the top of the crease, McDavid makes a quick pass, and it's just nice little deflection past Ottinger. And those are the kind of goals that Corey Perry is going to score for you. And I think that when you have McDavid and Draisaitl, when you have two former MVPs, and in fairness, Corey Perry's a former MVP too from 13 years ago, but when you can have three players of that caliber, or two players, I guess, of that caliber playing with Perry, it's a good recipe for success because they can do most of the work and they can dangle the defenders and set up these beautiful passes. All he has to do is stand in front of the net and cash in those passes, and that'll make him an effective part of that line.
Yeah, no, in spot duty, like I think he's fine with those guys. I don't think that's probably what you want to roll into the playoffs with, but for now, just rack up some wins and keep moving forward.
Yeah, and Bob Stauffer tweeted the lines from practice in Arizona earlier today, and the line of McDavid, Draisaitl, and Perry will stay together for Monday's game against the Coyotes. Like I said, after watching this trio together for parts of two games now, would you like to see them at least just keep it going for a bit, or do you think that this experiment maybe ends after this game with Boston coming up? But I just think for now, seeing if Perry can handle these top 6 minutes in case there's an injury down the road is a good decision. But yeah, just going into playing one of the elite teams in the league, do you think that this is probably the last game that we see it after the Arizona game?
I don't know. I mean, Dallas is a pretty good club, and you were able to beat Dallas with this lineup, so you might see them push on with what they've got until it sputters a little bit, and they have a reason to try something else. Like it wouldn't surprise me either way, but I think right now you go into Arizona and try to win that game with what you're doling out there, and if it works, then I think you're probably running it back against Boston, and you're just not making too many serious changes until something like a wheel falls off.
No, that's fair too. And just what are your thoughts on the nuclear option in general? Like, some people don't think McDavid and Draisaitl should ever play together. There's others who say, oh, you can put them together on occasion, especially if you're playing a weaker team and you just think that they're going to be able to overpower them so much that it doesn't even matter what the other three lines do, because McDavid and Draisaitl are going to dominate so much that they can basically win the game on their own as long as lines 2 through 4 just kind of stay even. Would you like to see them play together, let's say, once every 10 games or twice every 10 games, or does it sort of depend on the situation?
Yeah, I think it's situational, and I don't know, Woodcroft and Tippett and all the way back to McClellan, they seem to, when there's an emergency, break glass and put them together. I kind of like going about it the other way. If you feel you need to put them together, start that way, get a lead, and just dominate right from the start. And then if you're up by 3-4 goals, then you can go away from that and make yourself even harder to match up against. I think offense comes at a premium at times in this league. I mean, sometimes it seems like it's easy to score, and then sometimes it seems like you're going to have to be able to win a 2-1 hockey game. So sometimes if you can have them out there, get a big goal and then just try to control the game. You do what it takes to win hockey games. I mean, I'm not offended when they're put together. I know some people get really up in arms about it. I think this team has changed from when they first were here, and it's gotten to be a bit of a deeper team. I mean, it's not a perfect team yet, but it's definitely a little bit deeper. Nuge can play center, so I don't have any problems with that. Ryan McLeod's a capable center. Derek Ryan in spot duty is an okay center, but I think that's an area that if you're going to pair up McDavid and Draisaitl on your top line, then You need to address having a real legitimate either third or fourth line center. And I don't think Dylan Holloway is an answer to that, but maybe that's something you look at the deadline.
Do you think the other thing is too, like Knobloch really hasn't played McDavid and Draisaitl together very often? I would say out of all the coaches that they've had, and there have been several in the past 5 years, he's probably played them together the least of any of the bench bosses. When you do put them together, like on this recent stretch, do you think it's more to just really get them going offensively, or could it also be to just see how the other lines respond to it? Because really, the past few games, the Oilers haven't got anything from the bottom six. I mean, Derek Ryan did score a shorthanded goal on the penalty kill, but that's more of a special teams goal than a bottom six goal specifically. So I don't know. Could this change potentially not just benefit the top guys, but sort of get the other guys going a little bit too, saying, okay, like we need to step up now?
I think there's like a couple of reasons why you do it. I think it's, so Leon and Connor have some familiarity with it, in case you need it when it really matters in the playoffs. Like we saw that was used a little bit against LA and Vegas last year, where you pair them up because, you get a goal in a playoff series and sometimes one goal can really be something to hang on to. Like I say, like offense can be come at a premium. So if you can get a goal and not give up a goal, then you can win a hockey game. So I think you do it for that reason. And then, if your other lines aren't really producing anything, you're probably going to get some offense when you pair, Connor and Leon together. And sometimes it's instantaneous. As soon as you give them that one shift, they score a goal. So,
I think it better at home, though. Just sorry to cut you off, but I think that if you're going to have them together, at least you have last change, so you can get them out there against the lines that you want. But when you're on the road in Dallas and they're such a strong defensive team, putting McDavid and Draisaitl together, they're just going to match up against those guys so hard. And they still were able to contribute offense, and it's like they always say, you can't really stop McDavid. You can only hope to contain him. But when you can have the right matchups that you want for the road team against those guys, if you can shut down that top line, it really does make it a lot easier to win, because you're basically counting on, okay, well, we're just going to nullify the top two offensive players in the game, the best duo in the game. And from then on, we'll take our chances that we can beat the rest of the lineup. So in a sense, I guess loading up can have its benefits, but it probably makes them weaker lines, like I said, 2, 3, and 4.
The acquisition of Perry and the ability to put him up with those two kind of gives you a little bit more flexibility, because he can play with them, he can contribute. And that doesn't mean Zach Hyman's up there with them. And all of a sudden, your second line, you're coming out with Nuge and Hyman and Kane. That's a pretty, forceful and puck control and good luck getting it out of the walls from those guys. I still, come deadline, and maybe I'm skipping ahead to what you want to talk to later, but if you can get another, elite right wing on this club. I
mean, that would definitely help a lot.
Yeah.
And the guys you mentioned, like Zach Hyman, Evander Kane, those are two of the team's best wingers. And when you think back to some of the playoff runs in 2020, 2021, before they came to town, the Oilers were a little thin on the wings. Like, they did have these two elite centers down the middle in McDavid and Draisaitl, but the guys playing around them, the supporting cast wasn't anything close to what it is now. And while I think that Hyman and Kane are extremely valuable parts of this team and guys who both have 30-plus goal potential, like I said, Kane's already there, Hyman's already there, and Kane has a shot at it this year. I don't consider either one of them like drivers. They are excellent complementary pieces. But when you put them next to a guy like a player like McDavid or Draisaitl, then they can really take off and be effective. But for them to be the ones leading the charge on their own, I don't know if that's their strong suit. So, I'm hoping that they're going to be able to chip in some goals tomorrow as well. But I do think that when the team returns to Edmonton for the game against the Bruins on Wednesday, that we'll probably see a lineup closer to what we saw during the 16-game winning streak, unless there is just this great showing tomorrow where they absolutely dominate the Coyotes 6-1 or something like that, and the coach basically doesn't want to change his lineup.
Yeah, I guess we shall see, but yeah, at home, being able to have those guys together, you can kind of work your matchups. But when you're on the road, I agree, you don't get quite the matchups you want, and teams can kind of load up their lines to try to counteract that. But still, it's a tall ask. I mean, they are so gifted that, they're hard to stop, hard to contain.
Yeah, definitely. And one other notable change to the lineup is that Connor Brown is expected to be a healthy scratch tomorrow. And it's obviously been a very challenging year offensively for Brown, who has yet to score a goal through 44 games, though he has been a solid penalty killer for most of the season. I will give him credit for that. But however, yesterday he really struggled in his own end, and he was slow on the back check that led to a goal against. Dirsa, do you think it's the right move to sit him tomorrow? And what do you think would be reasonable expectations for Brown for the rest of the season?
I remember playing a lot of Nintendo growing up, and sometimes your games wouldn't work, so you'd have to pull it out and kind of blow on it and turn the power off, turn it back on. The guy needs a factory reset, whether that means a trip down to Bakersfield and kind of get his confidence back, or a change of scenery. It's hard to watch because you see him trying, and there's no lack of try there, but it's just not happening for the guy. And
he's hit a couple posts recently too, right? So he's coming close, but
he's gotten chances, but he just can't bury anything. And it's all between the ears. It's all mental. At the start of the year, I think coming back from his injury and that was probably hard. He was probably a half step behind on things and timing and all that, just not there. But I think that's been gone since about 6 weeks into the season. Yeah. And it's still not coming around for him. So I don't think one night up in the press box is going to magically, he'll come back and light the lamp. I don't know. I hope he does, but I'd root for the guy because you see him trying. It would be different if he just gave up, but he's definitely not doing that. So you want him to succeed, but there's just no success coming for him.
No, and I remember he had a disallowed goal back in November or December, and it was one of those ones where he was behind the net. He threw the puck out in front, and it took a bounce off, I think, a defender's skate and went in the net, but there was goalie interference in front of the net. It might have been Kane or someone who was skating through the crease and bumped the goalie. So it was taken away. But there was about 10 seconds there before the other team challenged it, where the look on his face was just such a feeling of relief, and the smiles to the bench, and every guy fist bumping him down the line just looked like he had scored a series-winning goal because they were so happy for him to finally get the monkey off his back. And then for them to call it back, it's just like, oh, man, this guy can't catch a break. At least when it happens to Zach Hyman, he's going to score probably the next game or maybe even later that same game. But for Connor Brown, who's been snake-bitten to this degree, it's so difficult to watch. And you have to remember that this was a guy who was heavily recruited by McDavid and Jeff Jackson in the offseason. Connor told him, we want you to be a part of this team. We think you can help win us a championship. We want you to come to Edmonton. There were other teams interested, and I know some people don't want to look at it this way, but he did the Oilers a favor coming to the team on a league minimum contract. Like, yes, he's going to get paid a hefty bonus next season, which is going to be on the Oilers cap. But, we can't worry too much about what the cap is for next season. We have to worry about the here and now. And right now, he's a league minimum player, but it's so difficult that, he hasn't had the season that we were hoping for. When I had my season preview show again, I had Lotzi on, and I had Kirk and Bob as well. And we all talked about it. I think we were all in agreement that Connor Brown was going to score 20 goals this year. And I think Lotzi even had him at 25. And that seemed like a realistic total because he had scored 20 goals in the past with the Leafs and the Senators. And he was coming into a situation now where he was going to get to play with a player like Connor McDavid. It was sort of thought that he'd be penciled in on his wing. But other than, the brief times they've played together, he hasn't been able to get anything going, and it's just so frustrating. I'm sure that, he's feeling it more than anyone. So I'm hoping that when he does get back in, it'll finally pop for him. But it's just been really tough. It almost reminds me of the year that Mike Pekka had with the Oilers in 05-06. Like, he was one of the big off-season additions along with Chris Pronger. And obviously Pronger is a much bigger one, but Pekka just didn't have a very good regular season in 2005, 2006, and then in the playoffs scored a couple big goals. I remember one breakaway against the Ducks, and that was a huge goal in the series for the Oilers in the conference final. So maybe that's going to be what'll happen for Brown. He won't have the season that he wants, but maybe he'll contribute a huge goal come playoff time, and we'll forget all about it because he came through when we really needed him most.
Mike Pekka got Fernando Pisani playing at levels he never played before and ever again.
Yeah, what a run for Fernando in the 2006 playoffs, and he was actually suited up for the Oilers in the alumni game against the Stars alumni on Saturday. It's something I really didn't know was happening until a couple hours before the game when I saw a local media guy in Dallas tweeting it out that they were hosting right after the regular season game, the third being an alumni game, and there were some guys like Luke Gazdick there, Alish Hemsky, who I believe still lives in the Dallas area, so easy for him to be a part of that one.
But what jersey did Hemmer put on?
83. Oh yeah, he was with the orange and blue, no doubt there.
Good, because he played with Dallas too. So
he did, and Craig McTavish was even out there. I'm pretty sure he was the oldest guy in the game. I think Mac T's like 65 now. Yeah. So that's pretty good, and of course still the only guy out there not wearing a helmet. I don't think they'll ever get him to put one on. But if he hasn't put one on by 65 yet, then it's very doubtful it'll ever happen. So
I know this is your show, but I got to ask you a skill testing question.
Okay.
How many seasons in Mac T's career did he don a bucket?
0.
1.
Oh, is this going to be a reference to outside of hockey?
No, he wore a helmet 1 year in his career.
With the Bruins?
It might have been with Edmonton, but it was just 1 year, and then he's like, "Nope, can't do it," and he went bucketless again.
I don't know if I've ever seen a picture of him in an Oilers uniform with a helmet. I've never seen him in a picture with any helmet on, but I know he obviously went to play with the Rangers, where he won another cup in '94, and then he played for Philadelphia and St. Louis after that. But he started his career with the Boston Bruins, and I thought that was going to be the answer to your trivia question there, that it was going to be like in the late 70s or something that he briefly tried one before giving it up. So no, I didn't know that.
I think there's like a whole thing on it. Like I think Bill Ziegler was the commissioner of the league, mm-hmm. and he wore it for a year, and then he took it off, and then they grandfathered in that everybody had to wear a helmet. But
anyone who started 79 or later, I think. So, yeah, and he was just before that, I believe. But he came to the Oilers in '85, after obviously spending a year in prison there for a drunk driving incident. But Anyway, yeah, great to still see him out there, and it's a pretty cool picture. I retweeted it from the Heavy Hockey account, so anyone who wants to go look at it, take a peek at it. Some good names that you'll see there, and yeah, but just to lastly on Brown, it's I mean, we can only hope that he's going to finally bury one before the season is over. I'd hate to see him go the Toby Reeder route and not even have one goal in a full season. It'd be incredible if it happened twice to an Oilers free agent signing forward. But yeah, I mean, like I said, maybe he'll cash one in playoff time, and all will be forgotten about the season. All right, and on Saturday, Evan Bouchard scored twice, including the overtime winner to lift the Oilers to a 4-3 come-from-behind win over the Dallas Stars. Bouchard also set a new career high in goals with 14 and recorded his 50th point of the season, becoming the first Oilers defenseman to put up 50 points in a single season since Sheldon Surrey in 2008-2009. Dirsa, Bouchard is currently on pace for 22 goals and 80 points this year. I think most Oilers fans expected him to take a step forward offensively, playing on the top power play unit full-time. But did you think he would increase his numbers by leaps and bounds this season the way that he has?
Well, my first experience with Evan Bouchard was when he was just after we drafted him. He was at rookie, like they had kind of camp.
Development camp in the summer, yeah. Yeah,
and me and my mom were going to sit down to watch, and he was just skating through warm-up, and he took a snapshot from about the top of the circle and missed the net, and it hit the glass right by where my head was. And I'm like, holy cow. So I knew right then and there that this kid could really fire the puck. What I didn't know is that, the overtime winner on that wrist shot, I mean, not only does he possess a 103 mile an hour slap shot, he's got a snapshot that's probably in the mid 80s to low 90s, and just almost like a Nuge level wrist shot too. So he's got the full package. So no, it doesn't surprise me that he's kind of tearing it up. The thing that kind of surprised me as this season has moved on, how well he's learned to actually defend.
Yeah, and I think that, like, everyone sort of had an idea that 50, 60 points was possible for him. I think some predictions, even like I believe Lotzi had him at over 70 points that he predicted on my show on our roundtable back in the fall. But now it looks like he might even hit 80. And there was a time when the Oilers went over 15 years without a forward who had almost 15 years without a forward that had 80 points, let alone a defenseman. So, I mean, it's just incredible to see what he's doing this year. And I think the Oilers were very fortunate to get him at 10th overall back in 2018. Let's not forget, this is a guy who scored 25 goals as a defenseman in his draft year. So when you can put up that type of offense at 18 in the best junior hockey league in the world, you know that this kid is special. And if you can play him with players of McDavid and Draisaitl's ilk, then it's just going to take him to another level even higher than that. And that's sort of what I envisioned him always being, even 6 years ago when they picked him, was that this is a guy who down the road is going to be the power play quarterback for the team. He's going to chip in a lot of assists just by being that smart presence from the back end, but he also has a shot, like you said, that's a cannon that he can just beat goalies from range. And bringing him in now to this top spot full time this year, we've seen him just reach new heights, and I wouldn't be surprised if this isn't even the best that he ever has. Like, maybe he can even take this up to 90 points one year, because as long as McDavid and Draisaitl are at this level and he's playing alongside them, then I think his potential to grow is just even going to go up with them. I mean,
this season has been, amazing to watch him, because you can watch his confidence grow by the game. He always was poised and patient with the puck, but now he's not afraid to make a few extra moves. He walks the line extremely well. He's just a joy to watch. And I don't know if it should come as that much of a surprise because, in junior he was putting up more points than Drew Doughty. I mean, he's an elite offensive player. It's it's a revelation, really. Sometimes guys will do that, but you don't know how it's going to translate to the NHL because it's a completely different game and at a completely higher level. But he's just blossoming in front of us, and it's a joy to watch.
Oh, yeah. And like I said, the Oilers were lucky to get him at 10th overall. I have a feeling if there was a redraft, he would probably be in the top 5. Quinn Hughes probably jumps to number 1 on that list in 2018. But you look at some of the names who were picked ahead of him. I think that a lot of those teams would love to have a do-over and have Bouchard be a part of this. And there was sort of a debate there at the time. Should the Oilers pick Bouchard or Noah Dobson? And obviously Noah Dobson's having a great year offensively too this year. I still think that Bouchard is the better fit for this group because of the cannon that he has. That shot, it's something that this power play really needed. They have so much skill. They can move the puck around so quickly and make these brilliant passes to set up these one-timers. But having a guy back there who can shoot the puck as hard as he does, it opens up more room down low, and it allows McDavid and Draisaitl to have more space to try and kind of work some of the plays that they like to. So I still, even if I could go back, the fact that Noah Dobson is still, I think 5 points ahead of Bouchard this year, I would still take Bouchard overall.
I think Dobson's at 58 points and Bush is at 50.
50 on the dot, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm going to guess that Islanders have played more games, and I know Hedman's 4 points up on Bush with 54. I know the Bolts have played 5 more games, so my bold prediction is Bush will pass Hedman too pretty quickly here.
Yeah, and I mean, Victor Hedman at one time was the best defenseman in the world and was putting up 70-point seasons himself, so if Bouchard can sort of get into that group now, that would be massive. And like I said, when you're playing with the caliber of guys he is, not just McDavid and Draisaitl, but also Nugent Hopkins and Hyman, you're surrounded by so much offensive skill that the points are always going to be there for him. But I want to go to a point you also mentioned about his defense, and maybe he's not the perfect defender. I always say if he can even be above average, I'll take that because that's not what you drafted him to do. You drafted him to be a point producer on the back end. But if he can still give you average to above average defense, that just makes him even more valuable to the club. And I think that that's something that he has done this year. I think that he has been better defensively than he gets credit for.
Yeah, I think the influence of Matthias Ekholm has rubbed off on him. I mean, there's been games where he's been the better of the two defensively too. And
not always. I mean,
no,
most of the time Ekholm is going to protect him a little bit and cover for him defensively. But, Bush still has to take care of his end of the ice.
I will much rather have Ekholm being the guy clearing the front of the net than Bouchard. I think that's an area that he could work on. But, positioning wise, there has been some games where Bush is actually backing up Ekholm instead of the other way around. So I think that influence of Ekholm being that stalwart, steady defenseman has rubbed off on him, and maybe it's a little bit of the coffee effect too. I think this team as a unit has defended pretty well most nights since the coaching change has happened. There's been a couple of one-offs, but it doesn't seem to stem into multiple games, and they're having success because of it.
Right. And while I don't think he's going to win it, could you see Bouchard getting some Norris Trophy votes this year?
I think if he keeps going, he'll enter that conversation. Like I say, I think Tampa's played 5 more games than us, so I could see, probably not in 5 games, but about 10 or 12, Bush being right there with Hedman in terms of points. If he keeps up, the defensive side of his game, he's definitely in the conversation. I don't think he wins it over, Makar and Hughes, but
no. But there's 5 names on every ballot, and could you even see him getting some 5th place votes here?
I I mean, he might get nominated. I don't see him getting too many votes this year, but in the years to come, yeah, I think he's in the conversation, and there might be a day, you know, in the next 5 years where Evan Bouchard is a Norris Trophy winner.
I mean, especially if he ends up leading the league in points by a defenseman, that will give him a big boost. I just hope that playing on the same team as McDavid doesn't hurt him in that respect, because you look back in the 80s, there were times when guys like Paul Coffey or Yari Curry deserved certain awards. Like, you could have had Curry win a couple Selkies as the best, you know, defensive forward, or Coffey deserved more Norris trophies than he won. But with Gretzky just cleaning up at the NHL awards ceremony year after year, it's like, well, how many more awards can we give to an Oilers player? You know, we already have Gretzky taking home 3 or 4 year after year. So I just hope that, you know, they always talk about, for McDavid, even voter fatigue setting in. Well, I hope that, like, it's not the same where it's like they don't want to hand the Oilers more trophies because you've got one guy who's just like I said, taking home half the awards given out on one night.
I mean, this year, if Evan was right up there with Hughes, and you know, everything was kind of the same, I think he would be in that conversation a little bit more, because you can't just call him a power play merchant, because their power play hasn't been setting the world on fire. I mean, it's third in
the league, but it's not the
like
best
what it was
ever.
last year.
Yeah, and I think Dash said that on my show when I had you guys both on last spring, where he thought, you know, he expected it to be good again this year, but can it be better than the best ever again? And I mean, maybe that was too high of an expectation. I thought that it could hit 35% this year, and I do think that it's still possible that it could again next year. Like, they're going to bring back these same 5 guys on the top unit, so as long as they can just figure out a little bit more of what worked last year, and of course other teams have scouted them for a while now, and they know that they love to do the cross ice one-timer pass to Draisaitl, so teams are taking away that more. But now the Oilers are implementing a few other things. Like, McDavid has been trying the bank shot off the name bar this year more than ever before. Like, I know he cashed it a couple times last season, but you see him trying it way more frequently now. So that's probably going to be something that they try to do to maybe open up a little more space, and maybe that one-timer backdoor becomes a little more open for him.
Yeah, and Bouch up at the top there,
Bouch
pounding
up at the top too.
Yeah. You know, they're doing a little bit more of the down low and then into the slot play too. That I've seen, you know, they're always adding new wrinkles into the power play to try to keep it fresh. So,
yeah. And just looking at the team overall now, they're 3-3-0 since coming back from the break. There's been some great wins in there, and there's also been some pretty disappointing losses. I mean, you could argue still that their most complete game that they played was that 3-1 loss with the empty netter to Vegas in the first game back, which ended the 16-game winning streak. I just want to know, how have you felt overall about the Oilers in the 6 games that they've played in February?
Yeah, I mean, the season is a bit of a up and down. You know, they started really slow, and then they make the coaching change and get hot, drop a couple, and then really inferno hot. Go into the All-Star break, come back, lose a bit of a heartbreaker against Vegas, where they actually played a pretty good game. You know, drop one to LA, where I don't think they brought their best game. I think they might have been a bit fatigued in that one, and but then turn around, follow it up. So it's kind of a bit of a up and down go here, but I don't know. Like, the rest of the way, you want to try not to lose 2 games in a row, so you don't get too high and you don't get too low, and just kind of keep an even keel and try to stay healthy and kind of sharpen up and tune up for the playoffs. It'd be nice to kind of go into the playoffs riding a bit of a high and go on a bit of a streak, but it's going to be a bit of a grind here. I mean, they play 4 games this week, and there's a lot of games down the stretch in a short amount of time.
Almost one every other day for the next 2 months.
Yeah, so it's about kind of getting your rest, and I don't think they can leave every hockey game until the third period to turn it on anymore. I think they need to start getting into games and doing damage early.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see them play with the lead a little more.
Yeah.
Get a 2-1 lead in the first period, and then increase it to 3-1 in the second, and then just sort of cruise to the finish line and maybe come away with a 4-2 win. Like that's sort of what you want to see. Not playing in chase mode or going into the third in a tie all the time, and then having these incredible comebacks to pull off the victory. Like those are still exciting ways to watch. And I mean, that game against the Red Wings, while it was far from a Picasso, man, that third period was probably one of the most exciting 20 minutes of hockey that I've watched all season. Of course, McDavid, like I said, having 4 assists on the 5 goals scored will play a big part in that. But yeah, it'd just be nice to have a few more comfortable wins and just sort of have a little more control over the game. And we saw that during the winning streak too. It just felt like there were some games you went into it and you just were confident they were going to win, and that when they would get up by a goal or two, that you're like, okay, well, the way that this team's playing and how structured they are and how everyone's in position and how great the penalty kill has been, I just don't see the other team coming back. So I want to see the Oilers play a little more like that down the stretch run here. And I mean, like we talked about, there's still over 30 games to play. So they're not all going to be perfect. There are going to be some bad games. The Oilers are going to lose some games eventually. However, they still haven't lost back-to-back games since mid-December, so that's something that they can take a lot of pride in, and hopefully keep that trend going and actually put together 2 straight wins now tomorrow for the first time since January.
Yeah, you go through and you look at their winning percentage and what they've been able to accomplish after the falling on their face start. And
I think it's at 8-18 winning points percentage since American Thanksgiving. So just, I mean, remarkable that they've been able to maintain that pace, like a 27-6-0 record in their last 33 games. Like, I'm as optimistic of an Oilers fan as you'll ever meet, and I didn't envision anything close to that.
No, got to admit, I was pretty worried after that start that making the playoffs was going to be... I
never doubted that they would make the playoffs. And I know people did. I know that there were people who said, like, this season's a write-off. It's an embarrassment that McDavid and Draisaitl in year 9 and 10 are in this position, blah, blah, blah. But I just felt that, this team has been a consistently strong regular season team for the past 4 years. They're going to figure it out. They're going to turn it around. But I think Draisaitl even said it in an interview. It felt like we forgot how to play hockey for a month.
Yeah. Yeah, you had a team in Connor Brown's headspace right now.
But obviously a lot better times since then. And when you can go over 3 months with just 6 regulation losses, that's a pretty good run. But I mean, in fairness, last year too, the Oilers only had 5 regulation losses in their final 39 games. So they've been playing like this pace for almost a year of, save for, like we said, that first month of the season when they completely fell apart. Other than that, this team has been playing at a great clip. And I always felt that was closer to the real Oilers than what we saw in October, because that just didn't resemble anything of the team that we had watched, like I said, the past couple of years, especially down the stretch last year. Okay, and lastly, I just wanted to continue on something that we started talking about on your show the other night. You already alluded to it, but that's the trade targets for the Oilers ahead of the deadline. And insiders like Pierre LeBrun and Frank Saravelli have connected the Oilers to several names on the trade market. But before we get into any specific players, what do you think is the Oilers' greatest need for them to go on a long playoff run this year?
Well, I don't think my answer has really changed since kind of the end of the playoffs last year. I think the biggest need, honestly, for this team is a new partner for Darnell Nurse. I like Cody Ceci, the person. I like Cody Ceci as the teammate. But I just think that we need somebody that is just a lights out, almost like Ekholm is for Bouchard. on the right side to play with Nurse. I've seen too many times where he is left to do a lot by himself, and Nurse's play is really transitioned this season. I think he's playing really, really good hockey and has been doing that for a long time. But I think there's occasions where he is asked to do more than his fair share of the load back there. So for me, that's the biggest area of concern. Defense wins championships, and if they can get him a partner that.
And not to counter you too much there, but yes, I understand, especially in how hockey changes so much from the regular season to the playoffs. Defense does, it of course has to be sharp. You have to have attention to detail. You have to be committed defensively. But I don't think that's necessarily the way that this Oilers team is built to play. We've seen them the past 2 years. They still like to run and gun in the playoffs. And yes, neither one of those cup years neither one of those playoff years has ended in a cup. But I think that, trying to change their game too much and be, this stingy defensive team, and that's going to be our identity. I don't know if that fits this group. They do need to still improve the back end. Yes, they're probably missing a top 4 defenseman, and the team defense can still be a little sharper as well. But wouldn't you say that this team is still more likely built to win a 5-3 game than a 2-1 game?
Those don't happen in the playoffs, though. That's the thing. Teams lock it down. Goaltending becomes vital, and
it is.
If you can,
you're right.
The thing that really bothers me, and I think this has probably been one of Cody Ceci's actually better season as an Edmonton Oiler, but some of the ill-advised pinches from him. And just the decision making, and let's face it, I mean, he doesn't have the quickest boots in the NHL, so he can't recover, and so Nurse is left trying to defend 2-on-1s often, and people get mad at him for laying down or the starfish and all that kind of stuff, but that's desperation, and you shouldn't have to play that much desperation hockey. As I think what he's kind of forced to make.
Yeah, and I do think they can play a few more of those, let's say, the 5-3, 5-4 games in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. I do agree with you that as they go further on a run, and if they run into a team like a Dallas or a Colorado or even Winnipeg or in the conference final, or if they end up playing, let's say, Boston or Carolina or the Rangers in the final, yes, then in a series like that, as they're really getting to playing the best of the best teams, then of course you would need to be playing better defensively. But I still think that this team, while they have shown that they can win some tighter games this season, I think that we're still going to see them winning games by a little higher scores, especially in the first couple rounds of the playoffs anyway.
I mean, sometimes the series can come down to one play.
Yep.
And
that's fair.
And, if you look back to what happened last year, I mean, it was Marchessault and Eichel really that killed us. Eichel's not the most shiftiest player on the ice. I mean, he's a good player. He's got a good shot, but that guy shouldn't be walking through people. And I think that's for me, that's the biggest area of concern. This team still has plenty of offensive firepower, whether Cody Ceci's here or not. I don't think that changes.
Yeah. I don't know if I love the way they matched up against Vegas last year. I think that there should have been some different pairings out against Vegas's top line and different lines. You look at a guy like Ryan McLeod. He was having a pretty solid, I think, defensive game in the playoffs, and I think that would have been the line maybe to get out there against Eichel's line a little more often. And but when he's scoring at the way that he was in that series, Draisaitl had that first great game where he scored 4 goals in Vegas, but Eichel was probably the most impactful forward the rest of the way, and that shouldn't be happening in a series where McDavid and Draisaitl are playing in it.
The other thing that I didn't really love about that series with Vegas is I think we thought that we needed to be the aggressor, and we got out of what makes us successful is, high-end skill and kind of our offensive game. And, look for hits, look to play physical, but stay out of the sin bin because
they had the lead in every game in that series, and I think back to that. They had a 3-2 lead in the second period. They take a couple dumb penalties, and you can argue that maybe some got missed on Vegas but were called on the Oilers, and they score 3 goals in just over 3 minutes, and all of a sudden the Oilers go from having a 3-2 lead in Game 6 to being down 4-3, and then just from there it just seemed to snowball and get worse, and they ended up losing that game. And it's just so frustrating because I think if they would have won that one coming back to Edmonton with a series lead, maybe they would have capped it off. But yeah, we'll see how they goes. But like you said, they do need to play to their strengths, and that I think sort of goes back to what I was saying, is that their strength, especially when you have this group with McDavid and Draisaitl leading the way, is always going to be to outskill the opposition, and you just have to hope that you have a goaltender in net who's going to make those saves, because I'm not going to come down on Stuart Skinner. He's a big reason why the team made it as far as they did last year and had the regular season they did, but obviously not the playoff that he probably would have liked. Let's go back to your point though about the targets. You wanted to see an upgrade for Cody Ceci. For me, if it's a guy like Sean Walker, I don't know if paying the assets for him is worth it. I think that it might just be better to go with what you know. And there's a chance it's even worse. There's no guarantee that Walker's going to be a good fit with Darnell Nurse. But I think if they can get like a true upgrade where it's just universally believed that the guy they're bringing in is going to be better than Cody Ceci in that spot and really help this team, then that I'm on board with that. So if, for example, if a guy like Chris Tanev were to come available, and I believe that Frank Saravelli said that the Flames are only looking for a second-round pick for him. Now, that'd be great if the Oilers could just quickly make that swap, but they need to make the money work too. So a contract would probably have to go back the Flames' way, and who knows, there might be a little bit of an extra tax, an Oilers tax added on to that, because you're trading him in division, and could be hard to sell to the Flames fan base that we're trading our best defensive defenseman to the arch rival to try and help them win a Stanley Cup. So I don't know how much of a optics thing comes into that. I think that really the Flames, their number one priority should be just getting the best offer they can for him, regardless of what team it is, even if it is the Oilers. Look, they've made 2 trades with the Vancouver Canucks this year, and the Canucks are also a big rival. So if it is just a little more than a second-round pick, I think that they should make that trade as quick as possible. And who knows, maybe Cody Ceci goes back the other way, or the Flames retain money on it. But I'll get your thought now. What would you think about a Tanev coming in to this top 4?
Yeah, no, I think that's the move. If Cece's on your third pair, you're doing great. And then you have Desharnais in the seventh. Yeah. But I've liked Vinny's game, so I'm not going to crap on him. But no, I think that's kind of the play. If Cece's going the other way, I guess that's the way it goes. And that's probably just to make the money work. And
it is, yeah. They'd love to keep him. I don't want to give up Cody Ceci for the playoff run. If you, like you said, if you could have him playing lower in the lineup, that would be fantastic. Ideal, yeah. But it's going to be a money in, money out situation. The Oilers have to send out a contract, and maybe the other team is thinking, well, we don't want to take on a contract, so okay, well, if we have to take one back, then we're asking for more than a second-round pick now. Maybe it's a second-round pick and Xavier Bourgault or Ty Tullio or something like that.
Yeah, and maybe Fogel's the play because it's an expiring contract, but I don't know if that sweetens the pot enough for Calgary. I mean, yeah, you're probably right. There's probably an arch rival tax added in there, but I kind of think that's the guy. I mean,
so when you hear other reporters, like on Insider Trading on TSN, Pierre LeBrun mentioned 4 names that the Oilers have interest in, outside of Jake Gensel, who is widely believed to be the Oilers' #1 target ahead of the deadline. And like we talked about earlier, if you could get a 30-goal scorer to play on Draisaitl's wing, well, that second line now becomes even more dominant, and then you're going to have 2 elite lines that you can put over the boards wave after wave. But yeah, if they could bring in, another defender, that would obviously address the need as well. But I'll get a thought from you on some of the forward names that are out there. Like I think LeBrun said it was Vladimir Tarasenko, Jordan Eberle, David Perron, and Daniel Sprong are all names that the Oilers have interest in. And I'm sure that there's going to be different costs for each of those players. Like I'd imagine that a Tarasenko would cost more than a Daniel Sprong, but maybe they only need to get a guy like Sprong, or maybe even Eberle would come in at a cheaper cost, and that's more worth it than paying the assets to bring in a Gensel or a Tarasenko. Just among those 4 or 5 names, like who do you think would be not only a fit for the Oilers, but a fit at the right cost?
Yeah, I mean, Gensel's my #1 still, but whether or not he's actually going to be available, because I don't think you're trading for a guy that's still on the IR, so that might come right down to the wire.
Yeah, and I mean that Pittsburgh, I don't think would be willing to trade him before the wire, because they're probably still clinging to some playoff hopes themselves. And this is year 1 of Erik Karlsson in town too, so you don't want to give up on it too quick.
Yeah. I mean, that's my #1. I believe that Jordan Eberle probably still has some big goals left in him, but I think I agree with what Craig Button was saying. I don't think he's a top 6 guy on a Stanley Cup winning team. If he's in your bottom 6, fine, but I think the price you're going to have to pay and all of that, it doesn't really make sense. So I don't know about that. I don't know about David Perron myself either. I think Perron's a little long in the tooth. He had good success when he was here, and he's a hard player, and he's gritty.
Best season of his career in Edmonton.
Yeah, he's a hard player. He's gritty. His game is always the same, but it's like adding another Corey Perry, and I think at some point you got too much of that. So having somebody that's a little bit more mobile on the ice, I think, is better. I mean, I've always liked Perron's size and the way he plays the game. He's hard. And kind of I'm on the same page with Patrick Maroon, like another name that's been sort of floated around. I mean, at this stage, I think that's a 4th-line guy. And I think you got to address, if you're searching for a winger, I think it's somebody that can slot into the top 6. So, yeah, Daniel Sprong or Tarasenko is
Tarasenko would probably be the
sniper. So.
Yeah, and Tarasenko probably would be the best fit. I still like the idea of bringing back Eberle. I mean, Sam Gagner has come home twice now. I was a big Eberle fan during his time with the Oilers, and it didn't end on the best terms, I guess you could say, here after a poor showing in the 2017 playoffs, and Peter Chiarelli and his management group made the unwise decision that he's a guy who can't perform in the playoffs and we need to get rid of him. And all he did was go on to have back-to-back conference final appearances with the Islanders and be a strong playoff performer for them. And last year helped the Seattle Kraken 1 year away from their expansion season, knock off the defending Stanley Cup champions. And I think he scored an overtime winner in that series as well. So he's a big game player going all the way back to his junior career. I mean, we remember the iconic goals he scored for Team Canada at the World Juniors, and he's a guy who comes through in the clutch, and I wouldn't mind having him on Draisaitl's right side. Like, yeah, at 32, almost 33 years old, his best years in the NHL are behind him at this point, but he's still a guy who knows how to finish in tight. He can really elevate the puck with limited space, and you put him with a guy like Draisaitl. They did play together too about 7-8 years ago early in Leon's career when Ebbs was still with the team. So there might still be a bit of existing chemistry there, putting those two back together. And at least it's a guy who, finishes his chances in tight. And when you have a player like Leon Draisaitl, who's arguably the best passer in the league, he would find Eberle at the side of the net, and I have a feeling that he'd be potting a couple for the team. So I would be interested in a reunion. I don't know what the cost would be. If it's the first round pick, that's a little steep.
It's too much.
It's too much. Like I said, it's going to be another time where they have to send a contract out. Like Warren Fogle would probably have to go the other way, or you'd get a third team involved to, cut the salary down twice. Like Seattle retain 50%, and then maybe you get San Jose or Chicago involved and they retain 50% again. But I don't want to put it this way. I don't want to leave the first round pick on the table. I want them to trade it to upgrade this team going into the playoff run. Are you in agreement with that?
Well, I think if you're trading the first round pick, it's got to be for something substantial that's going to help you, propel your team forward.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what they should be doing. And look, when you're going into a situation where Draisaitl has 1 year left and McDavid has 2 years left, this is the time when you should be moving that first round pick. Give them every opportunity they can to go on a long playoff run and hopefully win a cup. And I think that it sends the wrong message to those guys if you hang on to that first round pick and don't send it out to try and bring in something that helps the team right here and now. Because the player that they pick with that first round pick, that's going to be a late first round pick if all things go according to plan and they go on a deep run. It's a player who probably at 20 anywhere from 28th to 32nd overall isn't helping you for 4 to 5 years. They don't care about a player who's going to help them in 2030. They're looking for a player who can help them right here in the 2024 Stanley Cup playoffs. And I think if that's the piece that goes out the door to bring in a true upgrade on CC, I'm fine with that. And then maybe you move a pick and a prospect and a Fogle contract or something like that to bring Ebbs back in. But I wouldn't be surprised if they add one forward and one defenseman at the deadline. In fact, I think that's what they're going to do. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, that'd be great if they could address both needs. There's $5 million in cap space sitting in Bakersfield that if you can do something to free some of that up too, that would definitely help. It
would. Well, Dirsa, I just want to say thanks again for being on the show tonight. Always great talking to you. You're one of my favorite guys to have on the show. This is your 6th time now, which ties you with Michael Hebert and 2 other of my favorite guys down in Brazil who have been on this podcast 6 times for the most appearances. So I want to say I appreciate everything that you've done for this show. And what do you got coming up? I think you said on 97 Octane Hockey tomorrow night, you've got Hebert and Lotsburg.
Yeah, so we'll kind of get set for the showdown, and I guess the 4 games that are coming up this week, including the one tomorrow. So that'll be a good time, and we might do a show in the city with Bob and Kirk, kind of in person as part of the Heavy Hockey Showdown weekend. Not 100% sure yet, but. We're cruising along. I think tomorrow was episode 41 since we started this in the summer, and it's coming along.
That'd be really cool, man. And I want to thank you again for having me on your show too. And anytime you need me again, just let me know.
You betcha. We'll definitely get you back, my man.
And before we call it a night, where can people follow you?
Yeah, so on the old Twitter at Mike Dirsa, the 97 Octane has the YouTube channel, and I guess TikTok is what all the kids are doing these days. We eclipsed the 400 follower mark on there, which is crazy because that came after our YouTube channel. So
tackling the new frontier.
Yeah, trying to stay young.
That's awesome, man. Well, look, all the best with that. Everyone, please go give Mike a follow, and if you're not already subscribed to his YouTube channel, go there because they put out great content every week. I love listening to 97 Octane Hockey, and We'll see you in a few days, Mike. Thanks again.
Looking forward to it, Eric. Have a good night.
Good night, man. All right. So for Mike Dirsa, I'm Eric Friesen. This has been the 99 Forever podcast. We're out.